Well, hello and welcome to the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint live series. My name is Guy Stevens. I am the founder and executive director of the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint, and we are excited to have you here today with us. And as always, we have another great show in store for you today. I have a couple of guests that will be joining us and doing a presentation here. But first, let me tell you a little bit about the Alliance. If you're not familiar with who we are and what we do, the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint was started almost 5 years ago. We're coming up to a big anniversary here. We were started really in the name of reducing and eliminating restraint and seclusion practices in schools across the country. Our work has really grown. It's not just restraint, seclusion, suspension, expulsion, corporal punishment, all the things that are often being done to kids very often in the name of behavior, and really trying to move to better ways of supporting kids, trauma-informed, neuroscience-aligned, relationship-driven, and collaborative approaches. We are really working hard to make a positive difference. Of course, we do a lot of work with law and policy and a lot of work around education, which is kind of the name of what we're doing here today with our live events. We have three special guests with us here today, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. Then I'm going to take care of a couple housekeeping items and then introduce our guests. We're really excited to have Linda Cervenka, Michele Ricamato, and Deanna Tyrpak with us, who are the co-founders of the Soaring Eagle Academy, a not-for-profit, ISBE-approved therapeutic day school serving students 3 to 22 years of age with autism and related disorders. They're going to be talking about some of the experience that they have in the work that they've been doing at the Soaring Eagle Academy. I do want to let you know that our session today, as always, is being recorded. So you will be able to go back and listen later or view it later. It is being broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and it's available as an audio-only podcast. So you can go to Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, and you'll be able to download it there and listen to it later as well. I do want to share with you, kind of before we get started here, last live event that we had, we introduced to you that we have a couple of sponsors that are helping to help us produce this podcast. And it's really fantastic to have the support of a number of individuals and organizations that are helping us to bring this work to you. And want to share a little bit of that with you today. I want to share with you one of our primary sponsors this year, which is Supportable Solutions. Supportable Solutions is an amazing company that was started by a friend and colleague, Connie Persick. And I'm going to pull up a quick ad here to share with you a bit about Supportable Solutions and the work that they are doing.
Behaviors are signals to the deeper whys. The Why Toolkit, a tool built for and approved by teachers, parents, and administrators that can both assess and support individuals struggling with behaviors. Connie has created a document that turns typical behavioral documents upside down and replaces them with a deep dive into what really matters: how to support each child within a compassionate and relational framework based on their individual differences. The Why Toolkit was found to decrease seclusion and restraint by 21% in a year-long pilot study.
And this is a great, I've known Connie for quite some time, and the work that she's been doing on this is really fantastic. We often talk about behavior and really the need to get to the deeper why. And often many of the things that are being done really don't get there. So anyway, check out Supportable Solutions, our sponsor for today's show. And with that all said, it is time to begin introducing our guest here today. So I'm really excited to introduce to you our guest, and we've got a fantastic presentation on board. So Linda, I'm going to start with you. And you and I have had the opportunity to know each other for a while now. I was trying to remember exactly when we met, but it's been a couple of years now, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember, meeting you, I guess, in the same time frame that, there were a lot of things going on in Illinois around legislation and change. I was really excited to meet you and hear about the work that you were doing because, we had a lot of, there were a number of non-public schools in Illinois that were pushing back against changes in legislation to, eliminate prone restraint and reduce the use of isolation and seclusion. And of course, you had a very different approach that you've been taking at the Soaring Eagles Academy. So it was fun to get to know you and to hear about what you're doing. So you, of course, are a licensed speech language pathologist. Yes. A lot of the really great people I meet are speech language pathologists. And it reminds me, when I was in college, at one point, I took a career assessment. It told me I should be a speech language pathologist. I didn't know what it was at the time, but that's what my career assessment said for me. And then, I would say that I'm too old for a career change, but after I left my job a couple of years ago to do this work, who knows? Maybe you're never too old, right? So of course, at Soaring Eagle Academy, you are a trainer, expert clinician, focusing on teaching, facilitating, and supporting children during crisis. Linda believes in preventative and proactive practices and supporting a culture within the school environment that views a child's actions within a developmental framework. Additionally, you have a private practice near Chicago. So really excited to have you here today, Linda, and really excited to have you share your experience and journey and the things that you're doing to make a positive difference for kids and families. Michele, also a licensed speech and language pathologist who works primarily with children. So I have to append something I said. I often say that social workers are some of my favorite people, but I have to say that speech language pathologists are right up there. They seem to be people that are often doing things to really help and support kids. And I don't know if it's people that are attracted to the profession or just the people I'm lucky enough to meet, but you work primarily with children diagnosed on the autistic spectrum. Michele's experience is in developmental language models and supports curriculum adaptations to support students' abilities to make meaningful, thorough learning. In addition, she has a private practice in western suburbs of Chicago. And Deanna, we have three of a kind here, also a licensed speech language pathologist. This should be telling us something here, who serves as the executive director and board president at Soaring Eagles Academy. Deanna is also a parent of an older adult daughter with autism and leads her individual programming in the community. So we're really excited to have you all here with us today to talk about the work that you've been doing, at Soaring Eagles and throughout your career. So I just want to give a huge welcome to you and thank you for taking time out of your day to join us and, be part of this discussion. So thank you for being here, and we'll get started here in a moment. I do want to just pause for a second and say, if you're watching live, you know what to do. In the comments, tell us who you are and where you're from. We always like to see where people are joining us from. And it's always interesting. I probably shared this with you before, Linda, but we actually get people from all over the world that tune in for some of these events. I'm always surprised that, even though it's a totally different day over in Australia, somebody from Australia will pop in or New Zealand. A lot of the things that I think that you're all passionate about and that we're very passionate about, there are people all over the country and all over the world that are passionate. And of course, I'll just start out here with a comment that somebody put in here. Yay, SLPs. So people are here. I've got Trisha here from Idaho as well. And again, if you're watching live, and I know there's some of you that are watching live, tell us who you are in the chat. And with that, let's go ahead and get you queued up and ready. So you've got a presentation that you're going to be sharing with us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring that up on the screen. And I will invite you to go ahead and put that into the play mode. And hopefully we'll get that here in just a second.
I put it in slide. Okay.
Yeah, just hit the play from current slide. There
Here
you
we
go.
go.
That should do it.
Okay.
Yep. I'm always surprised in PowerPoint. I feel like the play button should be that big, and they used to hide it down in the bottom toolbar, and it was always hard to find. I'm like, why is the most important function of this program like hidden under a rock somewhere? So you can go ahead and hit play, but again, I think we decided that we are going to take questions at the end of your presentation, but I would encourage people, anytime you have a question, you're welcome to go ahead and put that in the chat. And what we'll do is kind of as we get toward the end, we'll take some time for some Q&A or comments that people have, and we'll go through those. I'll bring those up on the screen.
So I have a question.
Sure.
How do I get the play mode on the screen? I have done that already in my play mode, but it's not coming up on the screen in play mode.
Oh, let's see here. So I'm just seeing your main PowerPoint mode. So you say you already hit play?
Right. I already hit play. Is it at the bottom of the screen?
There is like a little presentation, like it looks like a slide.
And should
a screen? Try clicking on that and see if that changes it for you.
It says I have no slides.
You have no slides. Well, that doesn't make any sense at all, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Let's go up to the menu to slideshow and click on that. Can you do that?
No, nothing happens when I click on the screen.
Oh, well, okay.
I have it right here. I mean, I've already done mine. It says Alliance Power, Alliance presentation. Yeah, I already did it on my screen, on my full screen. When I go back into the StreamYard, the screen actually looks the same. So
gotcha. So why don't we do this? Why don't you go ahead and stop sharing your screen? And let's try to share it again and see if that takes care of our technical issue. Sometimes it's something that simple. So we'll give it another shot. And if not, we'll figure out another way.
So share screen.
Yep. So go back through that process again of sharing screen. And while we're doing that, I'll just say, let's see, Dell SLP in Memphis, Tennessee. The Facebook Live is not working. Oh, that's not good. Okay. I may be talking about the screen there. Courtney, if you can take a look at that just to make sure that, and I see now, I see your presentation.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Perfectly.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So hopefully all is working now. It looks like we are connected and your screen is there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually disappear. I'll be off stage here and let you take it away. And if you need me at any time, just let me know and I'll be back. So I'm going to turn it over to the three of you and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, excellent.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm very excited to present for the Alliance. This is a topic that is very dear to my heart and I have been passionate about since early in the journey of Soaring Eagle. So I'm very excited that my two co-founders and very good friends, Michele and Deanna, are joining me today. So there are lots of reasons why children have stress responses, as everyone here knows, but we are going to focus on just two. We're going to focus on communication and comprehension and the impact of the challenges in those areas on stress responses. I really feel like they're the missing pieces and something I train my staff and families on and other school programs as well and clinicians. And also we're going to talk about the importance of creating and maintaining a culture that supports this kind of programming, because if we are not doing this really from the bottom up, we're not going to make any changes. So we know that student challenges are caused by so many things, but we're going to be focusing on the child's lack of understanding, so their challenges with language comprehension and communication. So what might they be trying to share? What is their intent, whether it be nonverbal, whether it be affective, whether it be communicative through words? So the first part of supporting a child's language system definitely starts with the partner's regulation and their self-awareness. So we really train our staff for the partners to be calm internally and externally, try to keep us, our breathing and our heart rate slower, that we're thinking of movement and synchrony and pacing and timing, that we're not doing things suddenly when a child is having a stress response or when they're showing early signs of a stress response. And we're really thinking of the foundation from early on. So in those basic needs, that Maslow's basic needs on up. So we want to send this message of caring to the child too. Number one in our program is building strong relationships with children and sending this message that we care about them. We do this through our facial expressions, our body language, our vocal affect that's supportive. We always are thinking about our size in relation to the child. I mean, we're thinking about that both when the child is calm and specifically, even more significantly, when the child is beginning into a stress response. And we send the message, most importantly, I always say the number one piece I always find is that send a message that the child can be calm. And I believe that every child needs someone that loves them present. And often when I do tours, just this week, the mom said to me, well, they're like the moms and the dads. And I said, yes, that's right. They're the caregivers, of the people who care about and show affection and kindness to the child. So I have a number of slides throughout. I'm happy to share the PowerPoints if anyone needs them or would like them, so I can do that with Guy's support. These are some of our main slides. Michele?
Yes. So as Linda said, we are speech and language pathologists. And so our school is very much founded on developmental thinking around language. And that starts with from the moment the child walks off of the bus or out of the car until the moment that they leave. And of course, it entails learning. So Soaring Eagle really utilizes our developmental thinking and our understanding of developmental language to support our students as it is that they're learning. We're thinking about how we customize the language in order for the children to understand what it is that they're learning. And ultimately, there is a focus on how we make meaning and how we comprehend everything that's taught throughout the day. Because we feel that this is a key to helping children to be regulated and organized, because when they understand what it is that they're learning and when the learning has meaning for them, that supports all of the foundational capacities. What is comprehension? So since we're talking so much about language and that comprehension is a key factor to this, we just wanted to kind of highlight from a developmental perspective, developmental language perspective, what we think of when we think of comprehension. And comprehension is multifaceted. Part of it is the ability to interpret and to make sense of what is spoken or what is written. Another part of it is the ability to be able to understand words and sentences as it is that they're combined, the way in which they're combined, the order in which they're combined. And then finally, the capacity to be able to use strategies when it is that you don't understand and when language is presented that is above your level. When we think about our school and an important factor at our school, one of the things that comes to mind the most is that in all of our learning, we want children to be able to be at the heart, the agents of their learning, to determine what is meaningful. We know that there's motivation behind what children find meaningful, and meaning, as we know, comes from many different places. It comes from things that are relevant to the child. It comes from their history. It comes from their interests. It comes from the needs that they have. And what is meaningful to the child is what has significance for the child. And that's why so often when we think about the people that are the one-to-one partners or the support staff in these children's environments, they hold that meaning. They hold what is relevant, and we rely on them as it is that we are instructing and supporting, whether it be in moments of success or in moments of challenge.
So we're going to look at some videos. I find this is really the best way to both train our staff and really speak to what we do. Obviously, what we do, what we train is much more complex that we're going to show today. But I chose a number of videos that I truly hope help others understand how we think. So what we're thinking of all the time is, what is the child trying to tell us? This is what we're going to talk about today. How we can reach shared attention to support comprehension, so that the child has to be internally calm enough to connect with us, to understand nonverbal signals, to understand our facial expressions, and dependent on their level of linguistic comprehension, words, and how we can support that comprehension to make meaning in these times of stress, as Michele said. Yes, there are many other pieces that we think about, but this is what we'll focus on. So as we go through the videos today, this is one of the key slides, questions to think about and ask yourself. Is the staff sending the key nonverbal message? Are they a supportive partner? How is the affect experience for the child? And is comprehension being supported? Because we always want this experience of safety and non-crisis, and the message that the child can do it. They can, with our support, get calm. So I'm just going to go through, you can take a look at the slide. The way I train the staff and I think about it is, what might we see at these early stages of development? Yes, these students might be chronologically older, but what are the actions that we might see for their developmental level? So here's our first student. It's an early learning student, a child very new to the school. I don't know what others experienced, but the pandemic definitely created unique situations for parents and programs therapists. And the parent was very, very cautious. The child was very unsafe. She would never leave him anywhere. He became too lost in any space, any room that he wasn't comfortable in. And here we are. We need to transition him from the front door to his classroom. So of course, parents were there initially and they supported that, bridging of the relationship and all of those things. But how did we have to think about adapting the environment, and what strategies did we have to use and support to support a child understanding that we were there for them, that we were helping, that we were supporting, that we would take our time, and all of those things. So here is our first video of our little guy. So he's literally moving from one space to another.
Oh, it went down. We're going. Right there, Katie. We're going.
Now he sees, now he understands.
Oh, jeez. Hold on, boys. So when we come in, you should put the chair in the. Wait.
So you can see lots of waiting, lots of support.
Coming. Now. Okay. Come on, let's go.
So here is the teacher in the blue, the occupational therapist, right here in the front of the screen now. And they're a lot of their therapeutic team as well as their TA staff. So I would ask Michele, what is the child understanding now? And what is the child communicating?
Well, I think initially we could very much see in this video that he did not understand where it was that he was going or the purpose of why it was that he was going there. But with the support of the staff, and you could see as Linda was talking and showing, there were a lot of supports in place. There were visuals being used, there was rhythm being used, song that was predictable. And then what you could see is that as he got closer to where his vision system was able to recognize where he was, and he wasn't becoming distracted by things in his environment, he could understand where they were going. And then you could see he was like, yeah, I know, I can open this door. I can get out of this building. I know we're going outside to the playground. And certainly I think that he was communicating, I trust you. I know you're going to get me there. And then of course, excitement towards the end.
Mm-hmm. And so what was he doing before? He was crying, screaming, throwing himself on the ground, just so overwhelmed, hitting, scratching. He was in a complete fight flight. But through this kind of work and helping him feel safe and helping him understand and using those strategies Michele spoke about, that he was able to begin transitioning through the school. And this was really the beginning for him. Oops. So these are our basic pieces Michele talked about. So now, as we move up in development, what actions might we see at sort of this next early stage of development, where these are some of the things that children typically, very young children, they want everything now. They're acting on objects, but they're not always safe. We see a lot of touching, climbing. But the problem is that the little guys and little girls are much bigger now. So they're able to dump more, climb higher, etc. And those are the kinds of actions, anything that we see on the bottom of the page, we will see at school. So here's another early learning student who came to us and had some significant challenges at school in terms of mostly transitioning. That was really hard for him. And this is sort of his profile that we put together, just the main things we wanted to share in this. He had a really hard time understanding that things weren't going to be taken away. He wanted to move through the school a lot, especially through doors and open and close things. And he really had a limited ability to understand the intentions of his adult partner and really move into that back and forth. And I would say that it was allowing him to do exactly what he wanted to do, which was move through the school, that allowed us to build these connections, shared attention, being able to start reading our intentions and become a much bigger communicator. So let's look at him.
What do you think you're doing? Oh my gosh.
So he's in the high school, and he's trying to get into the speech room just simply because it was the first room when he entered the door. These combinations, these are, these door combinations. The staff in each system knows those the combinations, but most of us don't. So we have keys, and he knows it.
That's what I was going to say. Isn't it beautiful that he knows?
Oh my gosh. Did you get the key? It's locked. Uh-oh. Oh, help you? Okay. Oh. Sorry. It's locked. Here comes the wagon. Here it comes.
No, we don't.
You're gonna bring the chair where? Uh-oh.
Yeah, this chair's not good.
Mm-hmm. Careful.
Very-
Oh, do you see that?
So now he's looking into another room.
Big kids. Those are big kids. They doing?
So Michele, tell us, what's he understanding? What does he understand then, and what is he communicating?
Well, this is such a beautiful video because I think what we can really see is that this little boy at this time understands that there are spaces and places in this building, and that behind those doors, there could be something amazing, right? And he understands that, probably because he's had experiences opening up doors before and finding what was behind it and finding something amazing. So he definitely understands that. He doesn't yet understand where his spot is, where his place is, what the boundaries are. And so this is a beautiful way, a natural way for him to explore. He also understands something about keys. He understands something about locks, and he understands that if he can use something, that someone else's key, that he could potentially get into this door. Again, he doesn't quite understand that maybe that wasn't the right key and that he might have to try something else, but he definitely has some emergent ideas. And the other thing I think that's amazing is that he understands that his partner is joined in this process. And you could hear his partner, many partners in the background, really sending that message of, we're here to help you with your idea. We're here to help you figure out more about it and then be able to accept what it is that the limit and boundary is in getting back to your space, right? So I love this video.
And then just to add to that, he wasn't really understanding pictures yet, especially, out of context or of items in the not here and now. So it wasn't enough to show him a picture of where he needed to go. He really needed something to transport him. And he was beginning to learn that he would be transported with the wagon. So when issues come up like this, I read a lot of IEPs. The child is eloping from their space. The child is eloping from their room. Now, of course, it depends on the developmental level of the child. But for this child, he was just beginning to understand how to act on objects, like Michele said, what things meant, very early types of things meant, keys and doors. And like she said, that there were rooms, but he didn't have multiple options. So how would a child like this at this developmental level intentionally leave a space or do it to, move away from a demand? So we really have to think about children and where they are developmentally. Now, today, I would say this little guy does try to get away from demands. He's at a much higher level. And so we respond to him very differently in terms of our supports. We're still using kind hands, supportive thinking. We're still using that connection, and all those pieces are still the same. We just know he's at a much higher developmental level now. Okay, so at the next stage of development, children become more assertive. Just like this little guy, he was beginning to see how he could move from one place to another. He wasn't very safe, and children, as they move actually to the next level of development, aren't very safe either. And what we see with older children is a lot of attempts at self-assertion regarding where they lay, what chair they sit in, where they go. And if we resist those things and put them into a fight response, right, how are they going to be able to understand? Because once a child is in a stress response, they're not going to be able to take in linguistic information, often nonverbal information. It's actually not until children strengthen their regulatory capacities that they begin to be able to take in information, even not all of it, but some of it. So let's look at a primary student. What had happened was something happened where it wasn't exactly like he thought it was going to be. Something didn't happen, something wasn't perfect, and so he had begun destroying everything. This little guy, he's actually older now, and it's been a number of years, but he liked things a certain way. And he liked things in a spot a certain way. He liked to be able to have all the pieces. And when those things did not happen, it was very impactful. And that's because his comprehension system was so impacted. It's still one of his weaker systems, but he's developed a lot of strategies through the years with the support. So he had destroyed his spot in the classroom, and then the other students and staff were removed. These are a number of responders are going to come onto the screen. So our crisis responders, we call them blue responders at the school, which just means that they're trained in a whole bunch of things that supports them in thinking developmentally. We really utilize staff that have been with us for some time, who can sustain their calm, their heart rate, their ability to stay attuned and calm in the middle of stress responses, that they get to know the child. I always say that for every single challenge the child experiences, they have to have 20 positive challenges. I'm always concerned when I go into other programs and I see that their crisis responders are not often on the floor interacting with the children and building relationships. The most important thing in the time of crisis is the relationship. So there's just 2 videos. They're a little bit hard to understand, but there's not a lot happening in terms of verbal. And so the first one I'll play now.
Squeeze it in here. We can squeeze that out. Trying to put some on your neck. Go. I'll catch it. No. Okay.
There we go.
No.
Okay. So this is actually the first one. I like to play the second one first. So this is what happened after the biggest part of the crisis.
You need help?
I got it, Kelly.
Do we have these visuals?
They're right there. Face down. Back up to the
Can I have some? Okay. Hi. It's so good to see you. Hi, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm hanging out with Kelly.
Do you want me to sit in your spot with you? No!
I really think you should switch out. Okay. Okay. What's your policy?
I'll come sit. I'll come sit. Oh, we can listen to music together. I'm not touching. I'm sitting.
So a few things that happened that you might not have realized. So what happened was the second video. So I was the first event that happened after the big event, and I was called and I was in the background. The female on the floor, her name is Kelly. She's the lead crisis responder. His crisis person, his name is Ife. He was there, and this little guy could not calm because he often had challenges with the first person to come to him, not because they did anything, but because I think for many children, it reminds them of being in a crisis situation. And then you can see the progression of what happened. You can see the staff going low on the ground, sitting there and just trying to support the idea of safety for the child and for everyone else. So, Michele.
Well, I think you already said everything about this one. I think it was very evident early on that this little guy, and as Linda said, his profile is such that comprehension, what he understands about the world, especially at this time, most of what he was taking in was through his vision. And oftentimes what was said was not understood. So in this situation, everyone really dropped their language load so low for him, so that what he's understanding now is that my partner is here with me and my partner is here to help me. And I think, honestly, that's the most important thing that he's understanding now. And he's communicating with his partner. And you could see even in that second video, which was the first, he was even telling Kelly, here's what I can't handle right now. Here's what I do need from you right now. And Kelly was very responsively responding to that with him. I'm not going to touch it, right? I'm here. I'm just going to sit here, right? So I think that this is a beautiful video of, a powerful process that happens often at Soaring Eagle, where we're moving from not understanding language at all to being able to understand that my partners are here to support me in feeling better.
Oops. So let's think about the next student here. I'm hoping everybody's getting a little bit of an idea about how we think about these pieces. This student was easily overwhelmed in a multisensory environment and really initially had no ability to move into co-regulation. So co-regulation with the partner is the partner's use of their internal state to calm the child. So just like you saw Kelly in that video, she was present, she was calm, she was attuned. It's use of the physical and emotional self to calm the child. So this child is very verbal and quickly goes into fight or flight. He does a lot of yelling and hitting and throwing, and you're going to see hitting in here. I found that for the staff that worked with him often, he would just wipe their mind. I've had many children and young adults I've worked with over my career that I literally would have to write things on my hand to remember, or I would tell their teacher or their team, when I come, please tell me this word, because it was almost like a whole loss of myself. And I think that has to do with thinking about trauma that these children have had and the impact of them and what then that sensation brings to those around them. So here's the little guy.
Sorry.
So what's happening is you should go.
Well, so here's the problem. He wants to go to the sensory room. He's been in it a lot today. Right now it's time to do something else. Now he's hitting and stuff, so he should go. He should go. This is like what? Yeah, he should go. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who's in here now? Look. Caleb is in here. Let's check the other one. Let's go look. Okay. You have your wipes? Okay. I can be there in a minute. Wipe the mats off and the ball.
So are you concerned he's going too much?
No, it's just that we are trying to do like no sensory room unless it's a code, like we had been. It was working for a while. And so now he was asking to get a sensory room during the time when he's not allowed to, or what we normally do during the time that he says he comes in here.
So
And he's to get to go.
So let's make this into a math station then.
Okay.
Okay. So let's. Oh, okay. 1, 2,
He
3,
is very good at helping me clean
4,
the
5. Good. Okay. So let's make this into. So now I would have you go in, and I would make it into something fun and playful. Follow his mind. Thank you, Sebastian. So this is, and I think to myself, why did I say make it into a math station? I think I did that for everyone, the staff included. But most of all, what I know about this boy is he would have a complete loss of himself and a loss of feeling competent. And so I always thought it was important if he was ready to do something like that, because it was very hard for him to go from doing something that was just calming to going right back to his schedule. And today, this week, it was really cute. I saw him I was on a tour and I saw him in his classroom, and he's now in the next primary classroom. And the one of the people with me on the tour from another district said, "Oh, are you going to help your friend clean up the Legos he dropped?" And he looked at the person and said, "They're not ready. He's not ready." And he said, "I'll help him later if I'm not in group. If I'm in group, he's going to have to wait." And I thought that was a perfect example of all this early work we did and why it was so important to build the sense of competence, because competence is really important to him even today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. The only thing I really wanted to just add here is that I think it's very clear in this video that what he didn't understand was the reasoning behind whatever it was that the staff was trying to do. So then when you see him and he's in such a heightened state, at that point, there was not anything that could be discussed specifically with him that would have helped him to understand. But you saw how the staff actually joined, and Linda guided them to join in showing him that this was going to progress and be what it is that was going to support him. I think that's so key, because no amount of us talking to him at that point would have supported his understanding. He needed to be a part of it. He needed to live and embody the experience with his partner. And then you could see him start to calm, and you started to see him actually visually watching his partners a little bit more, and then being able to progress and move forward in his regulation and his learning.
Thank you. And I think with children who are really good talkers, that is one of the biggest challenges, I think, for everyone, is that when they're having a stress response, where are they at that moment? And Michele explained beautifully where he's at. He was at the state of connection, not words. But it was very hard for everyone to not talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it took often one of us coming in to remind them, and they'd be like, "How did I get drawn into that again?" Because it's very easy to get drawn into it, especially when you're someone who's trained to be attuned and responsive to the child. Okay. So as we move up, we're still seeing we're at a little bit higher developmental level, and we're starting to see these kinds of things. Children are just emerging in their ability to recognize their impulses, but this takes a long time to truly develop. And of course, all the while, they're not at the, they're not at a chronological age, they're much bigger. So we have to think of what we might see at this. And I do think this is where we get a lot of referrals for students in other programs who are very much talkers and or communicators who everyone feels is intentionally doing things. And then when we observe and see them, we see that they're really developmentally at the moment of stress response, needing very different kinds of supports and strategies. And then what happens if they're not being implemented, they really cause this this cause and effect response, and really, develop trauma patterns and develop, just difficulty even moving into the space. Often the relationships are tremendously impacted. So here is a primary student who is highly verbal and moves quickly into fight flight with words. I think I know I've been training and presenting on this topic for a long time, and I can't emphasize the importance of understanding when a child is in flight with words. I think it's very hard for many people to understand, parents, practitioners, teachers. So he was in concept group and he saw something he liked, right? And he's in that stage, even though he's older, where it's very hard to wait for things. And you can't reason with him. He's not developing theory of mind and understands that the next children need it. None of those things are going to help. So it's a very quick video.
Took a flashlight from concept group, but Sarah said that we need it for the next groups.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I understand you made a good point. There's a lot of flashlights already in there. But, and I said to get him a different one.
Yeah.
But Jackson really wants this one.
What's so special about that one? Jackson?
Let me show you.
Yeah, can I see it? What's so cool?
So see, when I turn this on, it's pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
But watch this.
Okay. Oh. What's this? Can you show me?
See, you have to pull this back.
Oh, yeah.
Make it smaller. Push it in.
Okay. That's very cool. Well, I wonder, you think that Sarah would let us put the flashlight in his schedule so when she's done with concept group, he can borrow it?
Actually, I'll let her have it.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for showing it to me. It's getting a little hot anyway. Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. I'll give it back to her. And then if you're looking for it later, just ask her, okay, sweetie?
Okay.
So you can see here what had happened prior. There was a lot of destruction and some, injury to staff, but, hitting, kicking staff, etc. to get to the spot. He was just becoming more aware. And so he liked blankets in his spot, in one of his favorite places, even though he had multiple places he could go, and that he had actually made a plan around was to go into a spot with the blanket around him. So, Michele?
I just want to add, I think that, again, we're talking, there's many things that we're talking about that are the understanding of what someone says and concepts that are presented. In this case, I think it was the understanding of that somebody recognizes my struggle, right? Making meaning around the struggle that I had. No one was shaming me. Right. You could see Linda very matter-of-factly was mentioning what had happened, what was going on, and he was able to explain what was happening, and you could see him calming. And I think in that moment, he understood, I'm not in trouble, right? Somebody's not going to, give me a consequence for something. And then so easily was he able to then shift to theory of mind. Linda gave a small suggestion to him, just a small suggestion about what could possibly be done to solve the problem. And he took it a step higher and said, no, it's good. I can give it back. Right. And I think, again, that's very, very powerful, again, for a student like this who, has a lot of language, and in great moments is able to understand so much and reach such higher levels of capacity. At this point, it was about, does someone understand my experience, right? Does someone understand what I've been through, and can someone identify with that? And I think that's the power in this video.
And it's so easy to think about in the moment, well, here's a student, right, who has so much language, and, he really hadn't learned how to share yet. So the fact that other children were coming, that wasn't a developmental step he's even to make, even possibly could make when he was calm. He was just beginning to be able to sit side by side and do things with another student, right? So it's all of these things, but for some reason, though, that's sort of like what everyone thinks in the world about children who talk and who have these kinds of capacities, that they should be able to share, that they should be able to leave things where they found them, that they should understand those things. But in the reality, when he actually went into the stress response, he understood very little. The only thing he thought was, wow, this flashlight. That's what he understood.
Right. And if someone had joined in a way that was more around resistance, I don't think he ever would have been able to make that shift. He needed somebody who could actually say, I hear what your idea is. I see what you were trying to do. I understand, right? He needed that first, and then the shift could happen.
Yep, exactly.
Took a flat.
So here's another primary student, about in terms of the levels, about the same. And it was the two of these boys who were in the same class at that time. And we're starting to begin to develop a friendship. This little guy, when he came to us, he's definitely, had a lot of ideas of what he wanted to do. They weren't typically things that would be allowed in a school. And it was very hard. He has a lot of interest, and even to this day has a lot of interest. He loves plumbing, so he wanted to see every toilet. And when he wasn't able, if anything was resisting, anybody would resist him, there was a lot of challenge. However, I felt that really what it was really about the sense of self and the competence. And he really could not feel competent in his body. Although he had a lot of words, he didn't have that sense of self. Everybody was walking on eggshells with him. So it was natural not to have any expectations, even natural ones at, anywhere, whether it would be at school or at home. And it started a pattern where he felt very incompetent all the time. It wasn't something he could share with us, but he certainly was able to play it out again and again and again. So here he is. There's a couple of videos with this.
I like standing. I don't like sitting. I don't like to sit.
So we would put himself in very unsafe positions over and over and over.
Whoa.
I want to stand on the slide.
Whoa, Kiki's so high.
No! I want the high. I want the higher part.
When you stand here, we're going to help you.
Wow! No! Sorry. Well, but you know what? I want to stand on thin things. I like it better if it's thin. So I'm going to stand on this.
Okay, they're going to come help.
No! I don't want to get down from here.
Help you down.
No,
5,
it's safe.
4,
It is
3,
safe.
2,
It is safe.
1. We're coming down.
I don't want to.
So let's think a little bit about what is the child understanding here and what is the child communicating.
I think it's very clear, and knowing this little boy, and he's come such a long way, but it's very clear that he understands the no, that he understands something about the limit, that there's a limit being placed. But as Linda shared, really what he's communicating to us is that because of my lack of sense of self, because of my need to feel powerful, competent, in control, I am unavailable to take in the information around the limit, or even to take in the information that you are trying to care for me, that this is a safety concern and we're all caring for you, right? But we see, and you'll hopefully see some of the pictures that followed, that he was eventually able to understand ways in which he actually could be powerful, ways in which he actually could have control. And he was able to receive that message, but it took a long time, because the first thing was that he understood is they're saying no.
Mm-hmm. And that his crisis responder for his system is one on the table, because he was trying to join him, which is a wonderful idea, in ways that they often interact, right, around his favorite little characters. He has lots of animals, suitcases full, he tells us, 72. I don't know how many he has now. So when that didn't work, you know, but again, these things are really important to try. Oops. So here we are now. The stress is coming down. He's ready for a partner to create meaning. And this is one of our trainers.
Where are we going now? Yes, shoot.
What? No, Harry. No,
Got him. Go, Harry.
I need those.
So Jen created a situation where he became, he started taking our walkies, he took our watches, our shoes. We had a whole thing. I mean, this went on like half an hour just to, you know, help him feel powerful. And then he went back to the climber.
Yes, that's right.
Why do you think it's safe if I stand there?
Why do you think it's safe?
It's because I can help myself there.
That's right. You can catch yourself, and it's low to the ground.
So, if I want to stand on that, I can stand right here.
That's right. You absolutely can stand right there.
Well, you know what? I think this is a little too high.
I think that is a little too high. You're right.
Yep, that's the only part I can stand on.
Well, this one and this one, right?
Yep. All that height, all the way around that, that's all I can stand
That's
on.
awesome.
Yeah. Oops. It's not letting me go to the next one. Ooh, oh, look what I did now. Okay. I need something that's not the video to go to next. Okay. I don't know what it's doing to me. So Michele, go ahead while I try to figure this out.
So I think, you know, this is what I was kind of describing on the prior in terms of what was coming. But here you can now see there is, because the stress response has been reduced, now he is actually able to take in the partner. And you hear him in his own responses back to Linda, showing and demonstrating what he understands about the limit. And you see gray. Now there's a gray, there's nuance, and also understanding Linda's perspective around it, right? Recognizing why it is now that she doesn't want him to stand at certain places, but why she's fine if he stands at a certain location because he's close enough to the ground and he won't get hurt. So just a beautiful process. And it was a long process of getting to this point. And that's, I think, patience, right? The importance of patience in these moments and letting the process unfold and not rushing the process is very important for this child specifically, but for all children in general.
And then he started asking me, take a picture. And so he wanted, I took, like 20 pictures while he stood on various things outside to feel powerful and where he could feel powerful. And we actually, he had an iPad that contained, and I think he still has videos and pictures of things that he became very competent at. Okay. And here's just another example.
Okay.
Here's another example of the work that was done in addition to that.
I'm getting one more. Okay. Whoa. Whoa. Look at Kayla. Look at Harry. Whoa.
You're doing it, Kayla.
You're doing it.
So here he's working, this is his teacher, and finding the power and the competence and really supporting he can do it. Simultaneously, I was meeting and working with his family regularly. I believe we met weekly or every other week with some of the team members, and really talked about what he could be doing at home to feel more competent as well. And, you know, really that working in conjunction with the families is so key. Without that, we would have never made the progress that we've made with this little guy, and actually all the children that you're seeing here today. We have a few more videos. So this is a student who is a growing awareness, but not able yet to talk about the challenge. Limits and boundaries are not yet able to be placed during challenge. He you saw him already, beginning to do that now at this time outside of stress responses, but not during the time. So this is just, it's really very short. It's mainly a picture of he couldn't start talking about it yet, but he could start drawing about it yet. And also when he was recovering, he would often hide in places. And what really helped was, although I don't have a video of it to show you today, was sending little notes back and forth, and he would draw or write words. And that was a way of connecting back and forth through the drawer, the door, the blanket, whatever it might be, until he was ready to come out. So here he is drawing his understanding of what the challenge was. Again, his perception, because that's the most important one.
Don't hurt yourself.
B is like.
Who's B? Oh, Bobby.
I'm just gonna write Bob.
So there was a challenge in the classroom, and here he is drawing about it.
Between and arrow. Are you gonna draw them, him giving the texture on that one?
Here, I have an idea.
I'm ready for your idea.
So. I'm gonna AKH.
Hey, that's my walkie-talkie.
So he's talking about a
AKH.
figure.
I'm shocked.
Oh.
Shocked. AKH. Sure.
So the peer got something he wanted,
I can scratch my hands.
and he had a big
There it
response.
is. There's Bobby giving her that ball.
I can't lift you up. You can get up. Come on, ready? 1, 2, 3. Come on, come on. Yeah, I can't lift you up.
Give.
It's a label. That's a good idea.
2, 3, up. Okay.
So this went on, but it was their way of beginning to talk about what had happened, being able to hear his perception, and most importantly, not to debate what he understood, but to hear him out and hear his perception and then talk about it, because that's part of it, right? You saw earlier where I was beginning to comment when the child about what might have happened, or trying to join with them. Now we're at a higher developmental level where he's able to join with it in person, sitting down and drawing. And drawing was and still is a wonderful way for him to resolve. He doesn't need really to draw so much about it. He's able to communicate more, but drawing is often a really supportive piece. It's often easier for children to draw or write about it than it is to talk about it.
Mhm.
Michele, anything?
No, I think that was it. That was great.
Okay.
Don't hurt yourself.
Oops. So I don't think we have very much time left. So this is just him, and I'm only going to say what we did. It's a very long video, but I think this part is really important. As children become more aware, they're at the point where they're starting to be able to talk about the challenges, maybe not the specifics, but they're able to communicate. A lot of the students, even those who are not verbal, are able to now communicate through their augmentative systems and be able to communicate what their experience is and make a plan with the people who are the ones who will intervene. So a plan so that we know what they want to do. So he was able to tell us here about how the touch of sensation is so much more impactful, that sensation of touch is so much more impactful when he's heightened, and when he's not heightened, how he doesn't mind being touched at all. And we came up with ideas, because this boy has been through a lot of trauma, of where he could go and what we would do and how we would support him at these times of challenge. So these pieces are really important at this level of having the student, the child involved in the plan. He wasn't completely ready to talk about what his experience was during the time of stress, but he certainly was able to start talking about, had an awareness that it was occurring, and maybe it wasn't logical or our understanding of what the stress response could have been too, but the idea that he was communicating around it is what's most important. And that is the journey with this.
What is the background?
Oops. So I'm hoping, I'm always looking for opportunities to present, to talk to people, because I really want to work together to change this mindset. The behaviors are not for the purpose of control, of gaining attention, of escaping non-preferred, delaying or escaping assigned tasks, wanting things a particular way, wanting preferred items, getting preferred activities, people or items. And the list is endless of the reasons why children are having these stress responses. I want us all to, and I know the Alliance is doing significant things to change the mindset of people and see a different way of thinking of these stress responses. So I'm going to turn it over now to Deanna, who's going to talk about how we actually do that at Soaring Eagle, because it's just not these pieces. There's a lot of behind the scene pieces. Deanna?
It's critical to develop a school culture that promotes and sustains this developmental thinking. And it truly encompasses all aspects of our program and our organization, and what makes our school so significantly different from other programs. And it started with us being approved as a school by Illinois State Board of Ed to not have to use a functional behavioral assessment or a behavior intervention plan, because we developed our own thinking, an individual regulatory support plan that allowed us to create a process and a policy for how we think about, how we interpret and respond to students' stress responses. It also encompasses hiring and transparency when hiring. Potential staff need to know what our vision is, our methods, and the complex population of students that we serve. And there needs to be initial and ongoing training in facilitating meaningful learning. It's critical that our staff understand this developmental approach we use to support students to learn how to learn, and that all of the learning needs to be experienced in the contextual environment with the student's interest guiding the direction of the learning. It was very important to us that we have designated staff to support student actions. It's critical that our staff can stay in their roles and their expertise within the environment, keeping the flow of the school day going for staff and students. And having consistent training in preventative and proactive measures. It's a trauma-informed culture in our school, and especially training for responding to crisis, whether it's preventative or actually de-escalating if necessary when we have to intervene and a behavior of an individual poses a threat or harm to others. That mindfulness led us to adopting a relationship-based nonviolent means of restrictive intervention called the MANT system. And that system aligned with our thinking that all people have the right to be treated with dignity and respect, and that relationships are based on the individuals being allowed to participate in decisions about their lives, and that their actions, even the negative ones, are a form of communication. It's so important we're mindful of how we speak to our students and our staff before, during, and after crisis. The foundation of our program is truly to build relationships between staff and to ensure everyone feels safe, that their needs are met and goals are achieved.
Thank you, Deanna. I have a number of reference slides in here as well. And again, I'm happy to provide the PowerPoint if that's something anyone would want, and just some basic pieces of what we think about. So I want to thank all the families that allow me to share their children. I can't thank them enough. This is a very vulnerable thing to share and to allow others to see. And I know that I'm never more proud of my staff than when we do a training. So we're done.
Unmute there. That's the important thing to do. Well, thank you, and appreciate this. I'm going to go ahead and remove your, you beat me to it, remove your presentation. And of course, you have offered kindly, if people are interested, they can reach out to me. Courtney, if you could put the email in the chat, people can reach out to. If they're interested in seeing a copy of the presentation, we can do that as well. And I just want to invite those that are watching live, if you've got questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat. I know we had a couple of things that kind of came up along the way, and we'll get to those in just a second. And of course, I've got some questions and thoughts as well. And I do want to thank the young people as well that shared their stories and experiences in these videos. Really appreciate you sharing what you've shared. And let's start out with a couple of things that are here in the chat. And I did want to mention to you, because I think I mentioned this as we were starting. We had a good morning from Australia. So in fact, Australia has been online here and joining us for this presentation. So that's always great to see. We've got people from around the world that'll tune into these events. So Tricia said, in Idaho, we have 10-year-old kids with ASD who are verbal and being charged with battery, disruption of the educational process, etc. Obviously, supports and prevention are imperative. But do you agree with the traditional brick and mortar schools filing criminal charges for unmet needs or difficulty communicating when their lids are flipped? So I know there's a lot to a question like that, but
so do we call the police? No, absolutely not. I don't think if that's what you're asking.
And I think that was kind of at the heart of it. But
Right.
This is something that we are seeing happening across the country, and I think one of the things that really stuck out to me about your your presentation and the discussion is how you kept kind of the starting point was regulation, right? The starting point was understanding that this is a kid who is having a hard time. This is a kid that's dysregulated, and as I saw the videos that you were sharing, I couldn't help think, based on experience and many conversations, that some of these situations are situations that would have ended in other schools differently, that would have ended in children being physically restrained or drug off to isolation rooms. And again, as you kind of walked us through these, and especially appreciate Michele, you kind of talking about kind of talking us through it kind of afterwards as well. What a difference it makes when as a staff member you're making that assumption to start with. You're understanding that this is a dysregulated child. This is not a child that is trying to harm me or trying to this is a child who's having a hard time. And I think that to Tricia's question, we are seeing these things happening across the country, where there are schools that are calling law enforcement in on children with disabilities that are having behavior that very often grows, not unfortunately is extinguished through the response of the staff. Our response makes such a big difference in any situation, but very often these situations that get escalated, it's the staff response that leads to that escalation getting worse. And watching the videos you shared, you could, again, I could imagine some of these situations going very differently, but it seems to me, and I'm going to ask this as a question, but it seems to me that mindset shift is probably one of the most important things that your team needs in terms of responding differently. So let me put that back as a question. What do you think it is that helps you to respond differently? And then by responding differently, you have a different situation.
Right. I think that we encourage our staff to call proactively. So we're not waiting till it's too escalated. Yes, sometimes it does escalate, but we're waiting until, we're trying to get those calls in early. And so it does mean we have a high level of walkie-talkie traffic, but people who are new to the environment are very overwhelmed. But we say, well, if you watch the kids, they're not. The children are not overwhelmed by it because they know that the calls are for help or for guidance or to get something. And then I think also the levels of support that we've been able to put in place, definitely with Deanna's support over the years, and we've definitely expanded, and the fact that even if the crisis responder is not sure, then they can call a trainer, right? And then the trainer can call another trainer, right? And that we also work with parents. I think that's another huge component to us. So I cannot tell you how many times during an intake, a parent will say, well, will you let them call me if I'm upset? And I will say, is that okay? Because can they please? Right? We're in this together with you. And so I think that piece helps as well, that there's this ongoing communication, a lot of planning, a lot of time. We meet every week. I encourage 2 weeks when we're trying new plans rather than this, everybody keeps trying and trying and trying, and the child doesn't have time for, I call it, their body to understand, right? Because if you're not able to understand, your body starts to realize what's going to happen and all of that. So I think that those pieces to me are the most important.
Mm-hmm. One of the viewers commented and said, reminds me of the time my child was eloping and climbing the fence. And then in a later comment said, absolutely agree. The climbing led to restraint for my child. So many times the response is escalated again, for I think a lot of reasons, but I think that, the awareness and the approach that you're taking in terms of kind of understanding what's beneath the behavior seems to really be key to, your ability to, work with and support kids that are having, and I'm sure that you've had children that have come from other environments where that hasn't been the case. And there's probably a pretty big mountain to get over there because they may not feel safe and may not feel trusting when they come to your environment.
It's the number one thing that when the child comes in, most of the children who come into the program have been kicked out of the public. The newest thing, and I understand the public schools often don't have the resources that are referring to us or the number of staff that we have. But the newest thing I've seen recently is a very reduced day, or the district saying they just can't provide any services, which in some respects, they're not providing trauma, right? I mean, there's not trauma, but the fact that they're not providing any services is a concern as well.
Did you say reduced day? Is that what a
reduced day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reduced day, right. Which of course, is problematic with federal law, but it's something that we absolutely see happen. And again, this probably varies for every school and every location, but one thing that I've seen kind of working with people from, kind of across the country, if we were more successful in, providing some of the knowledge and, support in some of the public school settings, there are a lot of children, I think, that wouldn't need to move into, kind of a private or more restrictive setting. Mm-hmm. So certainly there's a lot of work to do, and I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure you've, kind of had the experience where you're like, I mean, you look at the paperwork you're receiving with a kid and you look at the kid that's in front of you and probably don't see the same thing. I do want to ask, you had mentioned, and I think it was Deanna that mentioned, MANT, and I know in our conversations before, as I recall, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is that you don't use seclusion, and
we can't. We don't have seclusion rooms, and we would not use it. Mm-hmm.
Right, and I mean, our position of the Alliance is that seclusion is never something that should be done to a child, never okay, and our feeling on a restraint is that any kind of physical restraint should be exceedingly rare. Mm-hmm. So MANT, of course, has a number of different programs that they offer. And I know they, in fact, introduced a newer program that uses pads, much like Okera does. So in terms of your, use of restraint, is that something that is used at your facility? Is that very unusual? Is that,
No, it's a good question. So we use MANT because we have to. The state requires.
Right. And that was my recollection, that you had
Right.
some requirement to have some training, right?
Yes, and so in the past, we evaluated all the options that the state provides, and we chose MANT. But the methodology is what we use. MANT is what we use if we have to have our staff trained in it and everything. And do we use restraint? Very rarely we do. The thing about MANT, I'm not aware of the pads. It's not something we would do because I find that pads escalate actually children because they feel like they're being pushed somewhere. I'm not even sure the state of Illinois would allow that. Don't know, not using it. But even if I've seen they do a two-body hug where two of the responders on each side, and this is usually a child who's severely self-abusing themselves and attacking. We have a student in the high school. We're working with their family right now who's had some restraints, but it's nothing like, there's no prone, there's nothing like that. It's like they gently they guide them out of the room and help the child sit down with them. And the child typically sits down anyway with them. We've had, it doesn't mean we don't grab children who run in the street. I just want to be very.
Of course. Yeah.
If the child's running in the street, grab them.
Right.
Their parents would want you to grab them, but that's the only thing that we use, and we do not use it often.
So you another thing that you had shared, and this was kind of as you were getting towards the end, actually, I guess there were a couple things, but one of them was, and I'm just pulling I had a little note here that I took on it because it, I love what you were talking about, but you talked about how you got special approval to use your individual regulator support plan versus a functional behavior assessment. Right. And that warmed my heart because, I think probably not much different than you. I have a lot of concerns around the way that typical FBAs and BIPs are done and developed, and place kind of a lot of intent and blame on children for behaviors that are, as you've put it kind of throughout this, stress responses. These are children that are having a hard time, and there's usually a much deeper reason than, seeking attention or avoiding or kind of the traditional functions of behavior. That's really interesting to me. And so you had to get special approval to do this. Now, and I've worked with people that, again, have done work to look at things like FBAs and BIPs differently, because much of the traditional approach, in my opinion, isn't really effective for kids. And I think others would agree with that. Are there any federal requirements, or did the approval through the state kind of give you the approval that you needed to kind of, this is your equivalent to what would be a traditional? Okay, I see Deanna, I see you shaking your head there. So tell me about that. I mean, is this pretty unusual in Illinois to have this kind of approval?
Absolutely. I think it's pretty unusual in Illinois to have this type of thinking.
Right.
And
good point.
So helping the Illinois State Board of Ed understand our program. Just even being approved as a program was very new to them, because we were using a very different approach, and not just in response to a stress response, but our thinking as it relates to learning, language, every piece of it. And so as long as we could educate them and let them see the components, and that all of the things that they're looking for through their behavioral lens in that FBA and that BIP, it is reflected, but it's done differently. And it's thought about differently. And
I mean, I really like that. The individual, something started playing here. I really like that, and bear with me here. I've got something here playing that shouldn't be playing. Hold on for 1 second. Sorry here. I don't know what Let's start it here with there we go. That idea of, again, your focus is different. I've always kind of felt like, behavior is the wrong thing, right? We need to go upstream and figure out, why is this human being having a difficult time, so anyway, I love the approach. Love that you were successful in doing that. And certainly one of the reasons that we do these live events, and Linda, I know you and I talked about this before, but the hope is in doing these that other people will see them and be inspired by something that they see and think, you know what, that's something we could do. We could follow a different approach. So anyway, that's fantastic. I really appreciate what you're doing there. So we are just about at time here, and I want to thank you for joining me today for this time to share kind of what you're doing and the approach that you're taking. Certainly this is a journey, right? And I know from the conversations we've had in the past, and I know from actually doing some things alongside of you as well, like we're still constantly like learning and trying to take in new things and better ideas. And I'm a huge proponent of that, that quote from Maya Angelou about, we do the best we can until we know better. And then when we know better, we do better. And it seems like it would be a philosophy that is very aligned with the work that you're doing. And, appreciate that. We have, often in, kind of the space where there are kind of the non-public or private schools that are working with kids, I think of the best way I can put this. Oftentimes those can be more restrictive for children, more behaviorally focused, more about compliance and control. And we see a lot of children that are really having a very difficult time and honestly getting exposed to significant trauma in some of those environments that are intended to help them. Knowing that your, philosophy started you on a different track to start with. And it must be the SLP thing, right? Yeah. But your philosophy started you on a different track. But I know as well from the conversations that we've had that you're, kind of continuing to, ask questions and think about, how do we do better? And that means so much. So anyway, I want to thank you all, and I want to give you each a moment for any final words or final thoughts that you have. And it doesn't have to be anything deep or terribly profound, but I just want to give you each an opportunity for a quick final word here as we wrap things up. And Deanna, I'm going to start with you. Any final words or final thoughts you want to share with us?
I just feel deeply honored to be a part of this and to be able to share the work that we do. And hopefully it inspires others to think outside of the box and see our kids in a new way.
Absolutely. And you know what? See all humans in a new way. I'm just reminded by a comment here. And the comment here is inspirational for my work with older folks too. Very inspirational. And really, this is really about all humans. And I think about the work that we do at the Alliance, and a lot of it focuses on schools, obviously. But, many of these things, we don't want to see people being restrained or secluded or having lots of negative things happen to them in their behavior anywhere. And it's always amazing. I mean, you find elder care and, acute psychiatric care and other places where there are places that are doing fantastic things. But there are also many places still that are far behind the science and the research and the doing better piece. And again, that's why we try to spread good ideas. Michele, let's go to you.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you for having us, and certainly thank you to Linda. This is really her expertise at Soaring Eagle, and she's, I think, brought so much to us in terms of how we handle challenges. So I just want to say thank you for inviting Deanna and I to tag along in this little event.
It's fun.
And certainly, we hope that it supports and helps others in thinking about the power of comprehension, and that without comprehension, regulation is simply not possible. So,
fantastic. So, Linda, this comes back to you. This all started, I think, from our conversations. I'm like, I've got to have you on sometime, and you got to share kind of the work that you're doing. What are your final thoughts?
I was very thankful to be here. And so thank you so much, Guy. This is just like a really important topic for me. I never believed when I started a school with these two women that are my dear friends, that this would be the area that becomes such a passion for me. I've just seen some of the most beautiful things with this work, and I want to spread this information as I've shared. And I also want to add, although we did not speak about it very much, is that Michele leads our curriculum at the school, and that we would not be able to do the work we do around stress responses if the children did not have meaningful learning and not rote tasks to do throughout. And she has an amazing curriculum team that she leads that has developed that, and it's amazing. I can't say enough about it.
I mean, that sounds like another topic for a future live event. So, you might hear from me at some point. No, I appreciate that. And I think that's really important because, I think that often as a parent of a child with a disability, you find yourself sometimes in that position where if you find, caring and support, you might not be getting the academics that your child is, should be challenged with and is capable of. So I think that's a really important thing to add to the conversation, and really appreciate that. And really appreciate, again, the three of you making time today to have this conversation and share all that you're doing. Thank you. And again, thank you to the children that were, sharing their experiences, and we appreciate all you do. So with that, we will go ahead and let you go. And thank you. And thank you, everybody who was watching here today. And we will see you again in just a couple of weeks. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.